Welcome to the Narcissist Slayers podcast. We are your co-hosts, Hope Jay
and Lynn Catalano.
Tune in every month as we teach you how to slay the emotional vampire in your life.
Hope Jay is an attorney and founder of the Center for Hope Western New York, a nonprofit organization providing low and no-cost resources to victims of narcissistic abuse. Visit our website at centerforhopewny.org for more information.
And Lynn Catalano is an attorney and a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. She's the author of Wrecking Ball Relationships. Find out more about Lynn at lynncatalano.com. We are both survivors of narcissistic abuse, and we bring our personal experiences and professional expertise to help you on your path to healing.
Please support us by hitting that subscribe button. We are on YouTube and Spotify at the Narcissist Slayers Podcast.
And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the Narcissist Slayers Podcast. Send us your questions to narcslayers@centerforhopewny.org.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together, we will help you slay the narcissist in your life and reclaim your power.
Today, we have a very interesting topic, one that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And I think that anybody that's listening really is going to get a lot out of this topic, because what we are going to explore today is why empaths and codependents, another name for empath, are drawn to narcissists.
Yes.
And
over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I think that you don't really understand when you're starting out on this journey of recovery from narcissistic abuse, because you're so, it's like a triage thing. You have to deal with all of the fallout from the relationship. And you got to get back on your feet, and you're probably in court, and there's just so many things that are going on in your life that you're not able to take the time to explore the more deep-seated reasons why you found that relationship acceptable.
Well, that's it, right? So that's the question.
Yeah.
And that's the question you ask people is...
Well, it is. And I just want to preface this by saying in no way do I want anybody listening to this episode to think that we are victim blaming. If anything, what we are trying to do and what we hope to do by the end of this episode is to have you actually really consider how you can take back your power in your own life. Because I know from my own experiences and from talking to friends and clients and so many people, that if you don't do the work after a relationship like this, that you are very likely going to find the same person in a different skin suit. I just heard somebody use that quote just the other day, and I thought, my gosh, that's really what it is, because what you are attracted to, and when I say attracted to, I don't mean like you are attracted to it because you know that it's good for you. It's actually one of these things that you really have no control over. And I don't, I hate to say it that way, but it's like you're wired to be attracted to this abusive partner. And there's lots of reasons for this. And we're going to get into that as we get further into this episode.
However, we're not victim blaming. What we're telling you is that somehow you felt comfortable with this type of person.
Yes.
And what we want to help you understand is that you can rewire your brain. You can change how you look at the next relationship. But you can't do it alone, and you got to do the work. You got to do it. Whether you, work with a professional, whether you really do therapy, work with a coach, I'm telling you now, you have to do the work. Otherwise, it carries over into your next relationship.
And that's something that I wish I could go back and tell myself and tell, so many people who I've seen enter into this, phase of their lives where they are doing this thing, which there's actually a name for it. It's called relationship repetition syndrome. Oof. And, the reason that we are continuously finding these people, like I used to say, put me in a room with 100 people. And if there's one narcissist out of 100 people, there's 99 people in there that's not a narcissist. I'm like this. And somehow I would be able to scope that person out because of the energy that is being exchanged between somebody with my issues and somebody with their issues. And there's another term for that, and it's called the human magnet syndrome.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh.
And I want to talk a lot about that today.
Yeah.
But I know that you have like some thoughts that you want to share with people in terms of like why empaths and codependents are attracted to narcissists. And by attracted, again, it's more about this level of familiarity, this level of comfort, comfort that you're comfort. Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's funny, Hope. I've talked about my parents a lot because obviously I grew up with a narcissistic father, but I look at my mother as definitely an empath. And I think, why was she drawn to him? You know, why did she stay there? I have lots of questions that I don't have answers to. But, you know, I look at it and I think, well, narcissists and empaths often form this magnetic, here you're talking about magnets, magnetic yet toxic connection. So why do narcissists tend to be attracted to empaths? For all of you empaths out there, why are they so excited to meet you? Why are they looking for you? Well, number one is compassion, right? Because empaths have this great compassion. They're naturally caring. They want it. Sometimes we tend to go into like a people pleasing kind of thing. And we talk a lot about that. But certainly that is attractive to a narcissist. Number two, this is one of our favorite things to say, but narcissists always need to have power and control. And we know that when we talk about things, everything goes back to power and control. And so narcissists have this deep need to control the relationship, and they need admiration. They have they're incapable of empathy themselves. So when they find someone who is so empathetic, that's attractive to them. Number three, validation. Narcissists need lots of that, and empaths, due to their sensitivity, often provide that validation, right? Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. That's just how empaths are. Empaths have a desire to help and understand and do all that good stuff.
The people please, right? To fix and save.
Yeah.
My
I have someone close to me in my life who used to tell me that my mother needed to be needed.
Yes.
And that to me
that's very interesting, because one of my daughters actually made the same comment to me. You know, as she got older and is able to, you know, see the relationship that she unfortunately was exposed to and during that time. And she made a very similar comment to me. Yeah.
I have to say, when someone else holds up a mirror to you, that is the most difficult thing to encounter, but it's often a catalyst for change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we appreciate that. Number four is narcissistic supply. We know this. Narcissists need it. It's like oxygen to them. It's their envy, admiration, praise, recognition, all of that good stuff. They need it. And the empaths are often more than grateful to provide that. You know, they're there to tell them. I can't tell you how many times my mother said to my father, "You are so incredible. You're so wonderful. That organization doesn't deserve you. Like what would they do without you?" Like it was like a script that she had that she would just go off of. Awful. Number five, contrasting roles. So there's a dynamic often where the empath becomes the giver and the narcissist the taker.
Well, that's the dynamic.
That is it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
It's unbalanced, and it creates a cycle where the narcissist feels boosted while the empath feels drained.
Yes.
And then number six, empaths tend to see the good in others, right? They're always
to their detriment.
Yes, glass half full. They're always those. They want to see potential and help them grow. We just talked about that, how relationships often can be, oh, I see their potential and I think I can help them get to the next level.
Yes.
This is not a good thing.
Yeah.
This whole dynamic with the narcissist and the empath, the narcissist needs validation and control, and they're met by the empath's nature of selflessness, right?
Well, it's interesting because I think that, you know, I had to do a lot of work on myself after these relationships, specifically at the last one that imploded my life. But one of the things that I learned as a codependent, right? A lot of times people characterize codependence as selfless, but true in reality, codependents also have a need to control.
Oh,
And it comes across as this selfless type of behavior.
okay.
But truly, what you're trying to do is you're trying to control the outcome of someone else's behavior.
Ooh.
So, a lot of the things like you mentioned what your mom did and what many, many codependents do. And I like to use an example that everybody understands, the alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in a relationship with an alcoholic or an addict, okay, and this is well understood now, okay, that when a codependent is in a relationship with an alcoholic or an addict, what that person is doing is running around trying to control how much that person drinks or uses drugs. And, one of the first things that you learn in Al-Anon, or if you, join one of these codependent groups, is you learn that you cannot control somebody else's behavior. So the codependent's desire is to control the other person's behavior so that you can feel safe. You want to feel safe. Your mother wanted to feel safe. She wanted the children to feel safe. And because she didn't feel safe, she felt like she needed to, because you're always walking on eggshells with the narcissist. You never know what they're going to do. So anticipating their needs and placating them and kowtowing to them. And all of these are all things that codependents do, not because they're selfless, although it feels that way until you understand that you really are, you've put yourself in a relationship. And again, I use alcoholic as an example because there's been so much research on alcoholism and codependency, but it's not that dissimilar to being in a relationship with a narcissist or an abuser. Is that you're trying to control that other person's behavior because if you can make that person behave the way that you need them to behave, then you're going to be safe. And the reality is you're never going to be safe with a person like this. And one of the first things that you will learn, and, I'm going to reference the human magnet syndrome a lot. I'm just going to say the author is Ross Rosenberg. And you can find the human magnet syndrome on Amazon or any place I think books are sold. And it is a fascinating read. Okay. But one of the first things that you learn about if you're going to go into counseling and maybe work with a coach who understands these dynamics is that you were wired this way in childhood. And it's very, very likely that if you are a person who exhibits codependent traits, that you grew up in a household where, there was the identified person that everybody gathered around, whether it was the narcissist who was the center of the earth and everyone was just orbiting in their orbit, whether it's the alcoholic who's drunk, and everyone's trying to make him stop drinking or cover up for his drinking or lie about his drinking. Whether the person, in your life was a borderline personality who's in and out of the hospital all the time and you're on a roller coaster ride, and all the family members are sort of orbiting around the one sick individual. And oftentimes these individuals have personality disorders. Other times they have things like addiction. If you grew up in a household where for example, your father was physically violent towards your mother, what are the chances that you're somehow going to unconsciously seek out a man who's going to then be physically violent to you? There's reasons for this.
This sounds counterintuitive. It sounds sick, right? Because if I grew up with this horror in my life, why would I seek it out in a relationship? But again, I go back to comfort. And as much as that sounds ridiculous, it's that comfort in the chaos.
Yes, Lynn. That's exactly it. If I could put it any succinctly anyway, it exactly what Lynn just said. Comfort in chaos. If you grew up in chaos and your whole point of existence was to cater to the chaotic person, the narcissist, the domestic abuser, the alcoholic, whoever it was, the borderline mother who was trying to kill herself every other month or whatever, then you become the person who is constantly trying to anticipate somebody else's needs, trying to control for that so that you are safe. And
Wow.
this is then, and unconsciously, you're seeking out these same personality disordered people in your adult life because you have not understood why you have this unconscious, and we keep using the word attraction, magnetic sort of pull.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
how I said earlier that I could find that person in a
Yeah.
room?
Yeah.
It was magnetic. It
Yeah.
was like there's something about the energy they give off and something about the way they present themselves that I was drawn
Wow.
to.
So then to look at the converse, that means that when you're in a room with 100 people and
Yeah.
they're available, that you're not going to feel comfortable
Right.
with the person who presents as very like stable.
Oh my gosh, Lynn, yes.
Like that.
And that is why we're talking about this today.
Yeah.
Because it is so important. If you've just gotten out of a relationship with a narcissist, there is nothing more important for you. I mean, obviously you have to deal with all this stuff. You have to deal with the court and we talk about that stuff all the time.
Yes.
But when you are ready to take a breath before you, and Lynn and I are working on we're working on a workbook right now, and it's going to be out hopefully, in the next 6 months. But
You'll be the first to know.
That is one of the chapters is we are talking about how to fix your picker.
Yep.
And that's what all of this stuff is about,
Yep.
is before you dip your toe back into the dating pool, before you go out there and feel like that you can be a safe person in the world and choose a stable person who's not going to recreate that childhood trauma for you.
Yeah.
You have to do this work.
Yes.
And this is the work that is the most important work for anybody. So that you can take back your power.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're just kind of going to always be flying blind.
Yeah.
And you can say, as I did and as many people do, I never want to, be with somebody like that again. That was horrible. Because what's happening is when you're in a relationship with someone like this, they are triggering every single one of your childhood wounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you are human magnets.
But so if you witnessed, like, let's go back to, okay, you had trauma in your life growing up and you witnessed, I witnessed a lot of crazy stuff when I look back at my father's tantrums, and in reality, they were narcissistic rage storms. I didn't know certainly the terminology then. But when I look at how my mother behaved and how she just wanted to calm him down and de-escalate the situation, that was my model. And I know we've talked about this, how that I did not, God blessed me. And I did not find
you're the exception to the rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for most people, if you have that as an example, that's your model, and that's what you're going to seek out.
Exactly.
And so,
especially when you're that's the classic model.
Right.
So the mother is the codependent, and the father's the abuser, and you're the daughter.
Yeah.
So not only are you watching what your mother finds acceptable and how, what she's willing to tolerate in terms of how your father treats her.
Right.
That's the first thing that we're being wired, right?
Right.
But you also learn from watching your mother what how far you should go as a person to, put up with this behavior, to placate this behavior, to,
not be shocked by it.
And not be shocked by it, right? It's normalized.
Right.
The chaos is normalized.
Yep. You're conditioned to accept all of it.
Yes.
And so if you're listening to this and you're like, yes, Lynn and Hope, I have all of these things, right?
Yes.
What can you do about it?
Yes.
And so that's what we want to tell you. You can rewire.
Yes.
You can.
It is hard work. Okay. And here's where, I always counsel, because I'm a lawyer. I'm not a therapist anymore, although I do have an MSW and did that for a while. But I try to stay in my lane. When I see my clients that are in the middle of this, chaotic divorce, it's like a tempest, right? And then I find out that they're dating, or they're starting to see somebody. To me, like 700 red alarm bells go off. And that's because I know that they have not done the work.
Right.
And if you're vulnerable and you're just coming out of a relationship like this and you haven't done the work, I can almost guarantee that the person that you, welcome into your life is going to be a different version of that same guy. And they may not present the same. I can tell you from somebody who, did the relationship repetition syndrome, throughout a lot of my adult years, is they don't always present the same.
Oh.
They have, of course, because, all narcissists don't present the
Correct.
same. You have the vulnerable narcissist and the covert narcissist, and then you have the overt narcissist.
Right.
And so they're
and you talked about them being on a spectrum before.
Yes.
Which I think is very important for people to understand. Yes. Not everybody presents with all 10.
Well, right.
Although my narcissist was all 10. I don't mean to brag.
Right. Yeah. There's some people who have sort of, NPD traits.
Right.
There's some people who you might, if they were to get before a professional, might be diagnosed with NPT.
Right.
And then you have those terrifying people who are on the very, very far end of the spectrum, the antisocial personality disorder, the sociopaths, the violent people.
Yes.
They're also on that spectrum.
Yes.
So, and that's the other thing that I just want to bring to people's attention. If you don't get this under control, what I have seen is that you tend to find worse people as time goes on. So if you, maybe you are with somebody who has narcissistic traits and you get out of that relationship, and then the next time you find yourself with a full-blown NPD, and then the next time, you're with somebody who's physically violent toward you. So these are, it's really important for you, for your kids who are watching you.
Yes.
And for your long-term emotional stability to rewire your childhood wounds. And that is, it's work. It's finding a therapist. And we have a couple who are affiliated with the Center for Hope. Go right to our website, centerforhopewny.org. Who have this area of expertise. One who is trained in EMDR, which we talked about with Dr. Monica Burchell.
See our last episode.
This is a very, very important technique that experienced clinicians use with people who have experienced trauma.
Agreed.
So you want to find a therapist that's licensed and knows, not only understands cluster B personality disorders, but also can help you with EMDR, because it does help.
Yes.
I think that, going through the narcissistic abuse education and recovery workshop series that we offer here at the Center for Hope, again, you can apply. Just go to the website. We have financial assistance if you qualify. That's a good way to get started in this journey.
Agreed.
Working with somebody like Lynn, a narcissistic abuse recovery coach. That's also another good way to go. But there's tons of books out there, like Mr. Ross Rosenberg's The Human Magnet Syndrome. That will help you understand these dynamics. We don't have enough time to go into the depth of it.
Right.
But also, one of the things that I did, and I cannot more strongly suggest this, is that I actually joined a codependent recovery support group, a 12-step support group. And I'll tell you that it took a lot for me to do that. I'm not a religious person. I didn't like the idea of the 12-step program necessarily because of that issue. But I will tell you that joining that group was one of the most helpful things that I did. And because it held me accountable. You have to look at yourself as a person who also needs to be held accountable. So you don't fall into your old ways.
I agree. And I think that's one of the great reasons that when I coach someone, I don't like to coach them for 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions. I do it for 3 months. And the reason is because you have to hold yourself accountable during that time, and you have to do the work. You just have to. And guess what? Results at the end. People are transformed. And that's important. You need something where you can make that commitment and really do some introspective work.
And one of the things that I will say is when you are going through this journey, I Codependent No More, Melanie Beatty, there's a workbook that goes along with it. Also fantastic. I use that as well. I can't recommend it enough. But one of the things that you're going to realize when you step out there again, when you feel that you are ready to step out there again, of course, you're going to have a lot of fear about your own judgment because you've made, bad choices and weren't able to see that. So of course you're going to have those fears. But one of the things that is really important that you understand is that because, you know, you have this sort of inherent, again, I use the word attraction, I'm saying that because of your wiring and your trauma in your childhood, that you're going to have to fight through, the feelings that you have when you start to date somebody who is not that, because it's not going to feel comfortable for you.
Right.
It's going to feel
Agree.
uncomfortable because you're not going to have all of these blow ups. You're
Yeah.
not going to have all of this chaos.
Yeah.
You're going to have somebody, hopefully, who is somewhat emotionally stable. And it's going to feel probably uncomfortable, a little boring, a
Maybe.
little, right?
Maybe.
Because you're not
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to give yourself the space
Yeah, I agree.
to learn how to live in emotional stability.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that, Hope. You know, I believe that great things come from discomfort. And I believe in uncomfortable conversations. Guess what? Narcissists will never have an uncomfortable conversation with you. So if you find someone that is willing to show vulnerability, that is willing
Yes.
to get down in dirty as far as showing you, yeah, this is what I want. These are my deepest, darkest feelings, whatever. You have got to understand and be ready to receive that.
Yes.
In order to take it to the next level.
Yes. And interestingly, you know, I think, again, it's like, I know myself when I was, you know, in these types of relationships, I would always say that I wanted that. But the proof, you know, that I learned later on, that I may have said I wanted it, but because I was choosing people who were incapable of giving it to me, that there was a part of me that also was very, very fearful of intimacy because of how I grew up.
Wow.
So I had to address, you know, that within myself as well.
Very self-aware, very self-evolved, you know. This is the stuff that, that people who suffer from MPD never achieve.
No.
But that's what we do, and we want you to do that as well.
Yes.
So if you're relating to this topic today, please reach out, Center for Hope, WNY.org. Check out all of our affiliated providers.
Yes.
We have so many that...
and a lot of different resources that you may not even be aware of. So yeah, go to our website. There's lots of links for resources, not just here in Western New York, but across the country. And like I said earlier, you can fill out an application to join our support group, which I think, you know, everyone can benefit from.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Narcissist Layers.